Okay. Good afternoon. We would like to welcome everyone this afternoon. We're delighted to have you here. We're delighted to have you online today. We're just going to ask that if you are online, if you will please mute for us. And if you're joining us in person, we just ask that you please unmute your cell phone also. We would like to give a reminder out before we get started today that we have two more History for Lunches the month of May. On Wednesday, May the 8th, we will have Kenna Alexander on her new book, Carolina Built, a novel, which it talks about the life of Josephine N. Leary of Chowan County. And then on Wednesday, May the 15th, we'll have Miss Sue Englehart, President of the League of Women Voters of Northeastern North Carolina, will provide a lecture on voting rights as the United States enters another presidential election year. So we will have those two in the following two Wednesdays, May the 8th and May the 15th. However, we're delighted to have native J.E.B. Stuart, native of Elizabeth City, where he grew up in the historic old brick house on the shores of the Pasquotank River. And actually, we have had a talk on the old brick house by Mr. Stuart before. After graduating from Elizabeth City High School, he attended Oak Ridge Military Institute and then enrolled at the College of the Albemarle and graduated in 1968. From there, he and Judy Stanley, his best friend, transferred to East Carolina University. They married in their senior year and then returned to Elizabeth City after graduating from ECU in 1970. They both assumed teaching positions, J.E.B. at Camden County High School and Judy at College of the Albemarle. In 1985, J.E.B. completed his master's degree from ECU after 26 years of teaching and being assistant principal. J.E.B. was named principal of Camden County High School. After serving as principal at Camden Middle School, he went to Albemarle School, where he was named headmaster. He then worked in Perquimans County Schools, and he retired from education in 2005. After retirement, he took several interim administrative positions in Camden County Schools. J.E.B.'s other interests led him to join the Coast Guard Auxiliary, where he taught boating safety courses and inspected recreational boats for approved safety equipment. Later, he joined the United States Coast Guard Reserve, where he attained the rank of Chief Boatswain Mate and served in the reserves for 18 years. Other activities included being a member of the Albemarle Craftsmen's Guild and acted as chairman of the annual Craftsman's Fair for 5 years. J.E.B.'s shorebird wood carvings won many ribbons in competitions in well-known shows like the World Championship Wildfowl Carving Competition in Easton, Maryland, and the Mid-Atlantic Waterfowl Festival in Virginia Beach, Virginia. J.E.B. and Judy have 3 children, Eddie and Amy Stuart, who has James, Caroline, and Mary Claire Stuart. Laura and Jason DeFreitas, who have Emma and Lim DeFreitas, and Becca and Tevar Hawk, who have Adam, Noah, and Sam Hawk. In 2000, J.E.B. and Judy moved to Fuquay Varina, North Carolina, to be closer to their children and grandchildren. They enjoy attending the grandchildren's activities, having more shared family events, and pursuing their many interests in history, writing, and volunteering. J.E.B. started keeping notes for his book 14 years ago and is delighted to have completed his biggest project, Big Al and Me, Partners in Mischief, Capers, and Shenanigans. Mr. Stuart, I welcome you to the stage.
This is a shenanigan. What? Thanks a lot. Yeah, well. Don't thank me yet. Good afternoon. I just would like to take a little bit of time to tell you about what I consider to be an incredible feat that was done totally out of love and care and concern for really my family and Alan's Foreman's family. And I thought I would start by kind of where a good place to start would be who, what, when, where, why, and how. And if you do read the book, in the introduction section, it covers our family arriving here in northeastern North Carolina in the late 1800s. And it goes back to about 2-3 generations. And I've been able to, I've happened to find all these pictures are shoddy because there was no such thing as a snapshot when these pictures were taken. That's what they were called. You snapped it one day, and a week later, you got the chance to look at it and notice that your finger was over the lens. Not to mention the fact that people lose and the pictures deteriorate, lose the pictures, and pictures deteriorate over time. But what I wanted to share this particular picture with you is that my grandfather, Harold Foreman, and his brother, Wesley Foreman, were Alan and my grandparents. And Alan's grandfather was not necessarily the character that my grandfather was. And this whole book issue started with him when he wrote a book for his grandchildren, I being one of them, about his exploits when he was a little boy and on into his adult life. And we did not really care a whole lot about his adult life because he got married and started behaving as I tried to do. And my uncle Rodney did the same thing. He wrote part of his life story, but unfortunately passed away before he could finish it. So all of these things really are things that I try to encourage people to do. Write down your stories, try to record them and pass them down, because somewhere at some time, someone is really going to be, gosh, I wish I knew more about that. This guy right here, when he was about, I'm figuring 10, maybe 10 years old, thereabouts, he and 7 other guys took a trip. They rented a cottage every summer until they built one. My great grandfather built one in 1910 at the beach. It was the 12th cottage built on the waterfront. And he and I've lost count, 6 or 7 other boys, most of them were from the Eatonton area, decided they'd take a trip. Now, his cottage was where Jockey's Ridge is. I can't say the casino because that's gone. Jockey's Ridge is going. Nothing like it was years ago. But they walked from that spot, that area, to the Wright Memorial. The odd thing was the Wright Memorial is not there, but what was there was 2 workshops that, you know who built them? Wright brothers. And it stored their equipment. 6, 7 little boys with nothing to do. Let's see what we can find. And this fellow right here, and those boys, or one other boy in the little troop, I can just visualize them going down the beach, borrowed one of the Wright brothers' spare propellers. Now, these propellers were 8 feet long. That's as long as a sheet of plywood. And I could just see those little termites walking all the way from where the Wright brothers memorial is today, down to where Jockey's Ridge is, carrying that propeller. So when I look back at Alan's heritage, his grandfather was the oldest of 4 boys. He was 16 years older than my grandfather. He had to bear the weight of losing his dad and my grandfather's dad in 1911. So he was a pretty serious fellow. But Alan's dad, Woody Foreman, was a whole different story. Woody would take advantage of any kind of little situation that came up and see what he could do to create his share of mischief and Shenanigans. So my point, it's in our DNA. And sometimes it can't be suppressed. However, there have been some changes in laws that have intentionally suppressed it, and I try to move along from there. I started out as a child on the thank you. I started out as a child on the Pasquotank River. And that was a picture of me. You can see the date, 1948. And my dad was rowing and being a photographer at the time. And that picture was taken just about, those of you that might know Harry John Robinson, that's just before you hit the point where his house is located today on the river, just north of the Brick House. But I was all over that river every minute I could get, every minute. Here's the beginning of the devilment. If you can notice, there's two gentlemen right there. My Aunt Joanne, in reference to one of our grandchildren, said, looked at a picture of one of our grandchildren and said, there's trouble in that boy. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's trouble in those boys right here. It hasn't really manifested itself fully. But the other picture that was taken at that time shows that I purposely didn't include that in the presentation. Some of the trouble began when I was in high school. This is really where I really began, and Alan and I both began to get to know each other pretty well. And one of the biggest things that everybody loves to hear the story about that I'll share with you is it's in section part 2 of the book. It's called Jumping or Running. And you had to make a decision if you wanted to eat off campus, which was outlawed our first year, I think, just before we got into high school. But if you skipped school to go eat lunch off campus, you faced a 5-day suspension. And I'm sitting there saying, and the cafeteria food really wasn't that bad. We had government peanut butter, government beef, we had government butter. Honey wasn't bad at all. But you'd have all these government law. Oh, I loved it. And then it grossed my daughter. I had a can of lard, government lard, big old tub. And so it was really okay, but it was just something about the lunch and eating off campus that some people gambled. And like this fellow right here, who is he's an older schoolmate. That is an old Exxon station that was right beside Elizabeth City High School. It's long since been torn down. But that fence that you see right there, right where that cursor is, that's off school premises. And you had a dash of about 15 feet that I'm going to show you in just a minute. And you had to get off there and jump in this bay. If this bay was closed, you were out of luck because you have to run into the next. If that one was closed, you had to then run in the door. But the whole time, if Harry Thomas, the principal at the time, was standing at the end of the main hallway, he could see whoever jumped over there. And you were just out of luck. And there's what he absconded with, probably some nabs and a couple of candy bars. But we wanted to do one better. There was just something that we really appreciated and thought was the best thing in the world. And that's a Southern Pig hot dog. Was it worth 5 days home? The answer is no. Because I should have been an executive at Kentucky Fried Chicken because I was the consummate chicken. I said, there's no way. No. For those of you that are not familiar with the Southern Pig and its location, it was not, if I back up just one, it was not 12 feet away. It was a mile away, M-I-L-E, mile. All right, now how do we get from Elizabeth City High School to the Southern Pig and back? Well, Scotty didn't have a transporter then, so we had to make some arrangements. How it was arranged, I really can't, I don't remember, but I think it was Alan who found out that the school bus drivers in those days, we had a senior, we knew a senior, we were juniors, by the way, and we had a senior friend who drove the school bus for Hattie Harney School, the elementary school. They released right about the same time as our lunch period. So Alan came to me and said, well, you know, I don't think I did put his name in the book. Everything in the book is true. Unlike Dragnet, the names have not been changed because it did happen to the best of my recollection. So why hide the truth? Besides, it also say in the book that the statute of limitations has expired. So we're good to go. I hope there's not an undercover U.S. Marshal in here, but we'll try to deal with that later. To give you an idea of the proximity, this picture was taken in 1955, or 54, 55. It's in the 1955 Liberty City High School yearbook. This is the location of the Exxon station. That's what I was telling you about, 12 feet. Here is where Mr. Thomas could stand at the end of the hallway, right there. And he had a straight shot, boom. Now, they did have a big bush. This building was completed in 1951. So you notice they didn't do a whole lot of shrubbery work. But thank goodness, or some gardener, we had a bush we could hesitate. I pulled it one time. I tried it one time, and I didn't make it. And this bay was open when I eased in here. I got my stuff, peeked my head out like a rat, and did not see Mr. Thomas here. So I zipped back around here and eased in the back of the school. So I was home free. But Alan, any of you remember the movie that came out in 1963, The Great Escape? Okay, this is better than The Great Escape, because Alan said, you know what, Sanford Idley is the perpetrator, main perpetrator. He was the bus driver. And he said, Sanford goes to lunch every day during second lunch. That's the same time that evidently they let the bus drivers go so they could come back and pick up the kids at elementary school. And he said, Sanford Park, you can't see it, unfortunately, but Sanford Park, way over here in the bus parking lot. Makes sense. So he would leave, come down Pearl Street. That is not Pearl Street. Pearl Street's over here a little bit. And then he would come down here and go down Martin Street. So I said, Alan, I think we can fix this. I think we can work this out. So over a period of about 6 weeks, I think it was at least 6 weeks, we find a way to leave, go to Southern Pig, and come back. We averaged that probably 2.5 times a week. Caught, never, close one time. And you're going to have to read about that if you do get the book. But our journey began by, we would just kind of nonchalantly leave here and we could walk around the yard. The whole time looking over our shoulder is Mr. Thomas there. And sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't. Well, if he wasn't there, then we zipped in here, went upstairs to the second floor. There's a hallway down the middle of the hall. You got to follow this now. So we go all the way down the middle of that hall, and way in the back was, I bet you 65, 70% of the students that went through Liberty City High School did not know there was a stairway back here. We did. And we found it. It was right next to the choral room. And nobody messed with the choral. Yes, not us. But below it was industrial arts. This is where Mr. Manley Dunlop had the wood shop. And so we realized that if we could get past the teacher on duty, upstairs, get down here and get to the stairwell, we were in pretty good shape. However, we were on the second floor. So we go down to the first floor, and here's where it gets a little touchy. Oh, let me go back. How do we go back? What happened was Mr. Manley Dunlop also had second lunch duty. So he would close up the shop, the wood shop. And he would always check the back door. There was a back door. You can't see it. I wish I could show you that. And he would always check the door. Well, we would go down those steps, and we were like two rats or squirrels under that door, because there was a window in the door. And he would just come up. He'd check the door. We could hear him walking, and then he'd rattle the door, and then he'd go on off, and we were sitting there. And then we could hear the shop door close. He's gone. So we would sneak out this back door, and then up here, this is a crosswalk up here that was kind of an elevated office space for for Coach Dick Cherry. and he was the essentially the athletic director or PE instructor, whatever. But when he was sitting in his office, he had full view of this whole backyard. So we would ease our heads around, not standing up, but we'd get down about where the lock set was, because you wouldn't normally notice that. And we'd look up there, and you could see him sitting at his desk. And we said, "Coach, it's time for you to go eat." And when he got up and left, that's when we ran across and got to the edge of the gym. We'd go down to the gym, get around here, and then we just walk behind the gym, and then we walk just like it. It was okay because it was recess, so essentially lunch period. And we'd watch the teachers here that were on duty, and they were always talking. And so we waited until they left before the other shift came on. And then we hauled, I was going to almost slipped. We hauled tail. We hauled tail. Back here, there was a fence with a big gate in it. We go around that gate and get in a ditch only when it was dry. Only when it was dry. And that ditch ran just about, they must have just dug this ditch because that's pretty clear right there. And it would intersect Martin Street. We had it timed within 20 seconds or so of when Sanford would come by, and he would stop. He said, "Boys, I ain't waiting more than 15, 20 seconds. If you're not there and I don't see you coming down the ditch, I'm gone." So he just truck on and go about his business. He went to Southern Pig too. So did we. It worked out. Then how do we get back? The same way, except in reverse. Run down this ditch, look and peek. Teachers, oh, they're looking quick. Get over here. We come back. We do the same thing. We peg the door, climb back up on the door. Or, well, really, I take that back. Really, we just kind of blended in with the crowd and went on about our business. That was a great escape. Took a lot of planning. I could have been a mechanical engineer if I had applied myself in high school. It didn't work out. And that led ultimately to what the closest I got to reform school was a school that ended in Institute, Oak Ridge Military Institute. But I will get to that in a second. The other great thing that we did together, and it's quite extensive in the book, is playing at the beach. And the Jockey's Ridge was probably our pinpoint or target for everything we did. And of course, the casino was, there are many stories about the casino, as there are. This is a picture of it, as you can see, around 1960. A lot of kids see them, what are them wires doing up there? I said, sit down, kid, and I'll tell you. I said, we talked on wire. You know, they don't understand me. I'll never forget in class, I told some kids about a microwave tower. Well, we ain't put a microwave up on a tower for. You can't cook nothing up there. I said, never mind. There was a generational gap I had to, anyway. But Alan's main plane toy was a surplus Korean War Jeep. It was an M38 1952 Korean War vintage Jeep. That is the toughest. I don't even have a lawnmower that's anywhere near as tough as that thing was. 24-volt ignition system, 2 batteries. There's a battery here and there's a battery in the engine compartment. But we were all over Jockey's Ridge and any other place that we could go, either legal or illegal. There are a couple of serious stories about Jockey's Ridge, but probably this gives you an idea of the elevation of Jockey's Ridge. This is the casino. You cannot see it, but the white roof of my great-grandfather's cottage is right there. The one that was built in 1910. This is Alan's grandfather's cottage that was built, I think, in the late 30s. But this gives you an idea of just how far or how high Jockey's Ridge was in those days. And we're at least a quarter of a mile, if not almost a half a mile away from the casino. This is called the Back Ridge. And we had a lot of fun up there. These were the tools of our trade. We never destroyed property, but we did make noise. As long as we could get hold of M80s, they were our mainstay of devilment. our specialty was making Molotov cocktails. That's why I hope there are no marshals in here. We would take jars of gasoline, and the best gasoline we could use was either Gulf or Amoco white gas. Super high octane, clean, and when it burned, it was so pretty. We were cleaning out Alan's storage, trying to get on the good side of his mother, which you did not want to get on her bad side. We tried to stay on the good side. And we find this old water jug. And I said, y'all want this thing? You have to save this. And Woody's, no, just throw it away. We don't use it anymore. And I picked the thing up and turned around and looked at Alan. He looked at me, and that was it. Eye contact. He said, we can put 4 gallons of gasoline in there, tape an M80 to it, and make the biggest, hugest fireballs ever been made. I said, yeah. So we put it in the back of, we really tried to be as safe as we could, because when we bought our gas, we put it in a metal can. But we brought the metal can home and dumped it in this jug, 4 gallons now, high octane white gas. And I said, Jockey's Ridge. So we went around the backside. Alan knew every grain of sand on that hill in those days. We went back on the Nags Headwood Roads, rode up on the back of Jockey's Ridge, and creeped up the back of Jockey's Ridge with lights off. Never used lights on Jockey's Ridge because you had plenty of ambient light. You also were not easily seen. So we creeped up to the top of that thing. He said, what are you going to do? I said, look, let's get to the top. Don't go over it. Don't break the skyline. And we'll put that thing up there. We'll lay it on the sand, and we'll roll it down the front edge. Because the front face of Jockey's Ridge was always pretty steep. And he said, we're going to roll it down there? I said, yeah, we'll roll it down there. So we laid the thing down. We lit the M80. We taped it to the side. He said, you going to roll it or not? And I said, yeah, but you can't. The fuses burned about 5 seconds. So after I hit 3, I let it go, and it rolled down. And when it went off, a fireball almost the size of a school bus. People were pulling off the road, coming to stop. They didn't know what had happened or what was going on. And the whole time we had eased, we weren't in the Jeep, we were on our hands and knees, and we crawled back down so you couldn't see us on the skyline. Judy told me not to tell that story, but I couldn't let it go. See that word? This is Oak Ridge Military Institute. It's a life-changing experience. And that was our company. Alan and I both, mine were much deeper in the gutter than Alan's grades were, but we both needed help. I needed a whole lot of help. And I was too busy hunting ducks and playing and goofing off. But this was our unit. That's me there, Alan down here on the end. But one of the two best stories about our being at Oak Ridge is something they call the M1 thumb. The M1 is the rifle that was used in it won the Second World War and did its share of winning in Korea. It's 9.5 pounds unloaded, 10 pounds loaded with a bayonet, or 10.5 pounds. It is a formidable weapon. And the action, this part right here, that goes back and forth, that chambers the bullet and then it fires and comes back again, there's no other word for it, a hellacious spring. And it just jams, slams, bam, right up. And to go through one of the manual of arms, inspection of arms, you had to open the action, present it to the inspector, take it back, put your hand back in it, and close it. And you had to be real fast, is the word you're looking for. Because if you weren't fast enough, that's what happened. But it wasn't, it happened in that instant. Hey. Well, we were going through that parade field. Here we are all out there. And we're standing around. Hot darn! Except it wasn't a darn. Everybody on the parade field, which is about the size of 2.5 football fields, stopped and looked at Alpha Company. And I said, I've heard that exclamation before. And the company commander said, Foreman, are you having any trouble? Hell yeah, I'm having trouble. I got my finger stuck in this damn rifle. So this is not his finger. I don't want y'all to get upset, but that's what his finger looked like for about 2 weeks. Did I tease him about it? No. Would he have teased me about it? Probably. But I knew how much it had to hurt to look that bad. This is the biggest joke of all of Oak Ridge. What are you laughing at, choir? Yeah, neither one of us could carry a tune in a bucket. And you say, what in the world are you doing in the choir? Well, our good friend who had been up there the year before we were up there, Froggy Thornton, said, there are 2 things you guys got to volunteer to do. And I said, you're kidding me, Froggy. You don't volunteer in the military for anything. He said, no, I want you to volunteer to clean the head. Clean the head? We got to clean a bathroom. Volunteer to clean the head. I'll tell you why later. I'm not going to do it now because I want to leave some of the mystery up to you. Then the other thing was we could not leave campus on Sunday. The upperclassmen could leave. If you were a senior or a college, in college, they had a 2-year college program. But we were kind of in the middle. We were there for, we were kind of a transition or whatever. I can't think of the term right this second. But we were trying to get our grades pulled up. And we were neither high school nor college. But because we were, even though we were 19 years old, we couldn't leave campus on Sunday like the big boys or the older boys. But Froggy said, if you get in the choir, you can get off Sunday afternoon. You got to go to choir practice, Thursday night choir practice. But if you're in the choir, singing the choir on Sunday, you're out of there that afternoon. We looked at each other, and there we are, the Elizabeth City Choir boys, right there. Alan and J.E.B. And there are a few others. Brian Foreman, our cousin, was there. But somebody had evidently gotten to a few other people. There were never this many boys in that choir. Never. They just didn't show up. But one of Alan's sons still talks about this picture, said the first time he saw this, he just fell out laughing because he just could not believe it. We always liking hot lunches. And when we did our duck hunting, we went out with John Wood Foreman, the picture I showed you earlier. I didn't properly identify him. But John Wood had a very professionally run hunting rig out of Currituck. It was out of Idley. And it was everything. His duck boat, gas boat, it had a gasoline engine inside. His gas boat had a marine engine. It was designed to be in a boat. And we thought that was so cool. It's also so expensive. But it was a nice rig, and we thought that was so cool that the guys that ran the boat for John Wood would put their beans and their potted meat and whatever on there to heat it up. So when Alan bought his first gas boat, there's a picture of it in the book. Well, there's a picture of an engine that was like in his boat. It was an engine that came out of a pickup truck, not a marine engine, out of a pickup truck. Put it right in the boat, hooked it up. Off you went. So we went out one day. Big J, go ahead, fix up some beans or something. We'll have that when we get out of the blind. So I put a nice big can of pork and beans, laid it on a manifold, like we saw the guy do it many times before going out with John Wood. So we're on our way across the sign heading toward Corolla. That's where we would set out. And all of a sudden I heard this, and I said, what was that? Because I was real sensitive for this Chevrolet truck motor. I didn't know what was going to happen to it. And then we looked at each other. What's that smell? And so I said, it's not you and it's not me. It's coming from the engine box. So we opened the engine box. Out comes smoke. That can of beans had blown up all over the engine. There were beans on the box inside the engine and everything. We had forgotten that the manifold, the exhaust manifold, on a regular car engine or a truck engine, at times it can glow cherry red. But a marine engine, it very rarely reaches over 200 degrees because it's cooled, so it doesn't catch the boat on fire. So we had a really hot lunch that day. My next quick story, I'm running out of story time. this one, who said, my wife did. This is what your waterfront park. I wanted to tell you this because this is the proximity story. This all happened literally in the front yard of the museum. The museum would be right where this parking lot is. This was taken around 1964. Before this was part of the 1967 renewal project. And this, the story as it goes was, I had gotten a phone call, well, not a phone call. I'd gotten a guy to come down and look at the boat. There's a big section of the book that talks about us refitting this boat for fishing out of Oregon Inlet. And we were going through the fuel system, make sure everything was good to go. Fittings were tight, everything was safe, valves, the whole works. And he said, "Where's your equalizing line?" "What are you talking about, equalizing line? We got to have an equalizing line." "Well, nobody told us about an equalizing line." And I want to remind you, we had brand new fuel tanks put in, brand new piping. All of this had already been framed over with the deck that had already been installed. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, you've got to have an equalizing line so there's always the same amount of fuel in each tank. If not, you have to cut this tank off, cut this one on, and then cut this one off, and then cut this one on, so to keep your boat trimmed back." I said, "Well, no, nobody's told us that. This area down here is now Coast Guard Park. But the reason I was telling you about the equalizing line is I said, well, I'll go see Gaither Islet at Albemarle Welding, which is now, they didn't change the name of the bank. I don't know what it is on Ering High Street. Anyway, that's all this stuff has been changed and cleared and rebuilt. But this is where we did all of our work. This is the old Pasco Tank River Yacht Club. This was a covered boat shed, and we were in and out of the boat shed working on the boat. And this is there's again the shed and the yacht club, a little closer shot of Dora Willie's Riverside Boat Works. And that's where I spent most of 2 years working on that boat off and on. But they said, "Well, if you call Gaither Island, he can help you. We'll see what he can do." This is what the same place looks like today. This is an aerial shot of Waterfront Park. We had pulled the boat up across there to work on it. Gaither Island said, he said, "Well, it's no problem. I can weld a joint in there and put the equalizing line in. It's no problem." I said, "Mr. Island," he said, "Now what?" I don't know if y'all know Gaither or not, but he's one of them. He said, "What now?" I said, "There's fuel in the tanks." "Oh, we have a problem, don't we?" I said, "Yeah, we have a problem." I felt like saying, "Why don't you help me? Tell me what to do." We do that all the time." I said, wait a minute, you're going to weld something on a tank that has fuel in it?" "Yeah, it'll be all right." And I said, "Well, wait a minute." He said, "Well, first you got to get the fuel out." I said, "Well, duh." I didn't say that because I wanted him to help me. And I said, "Well, okay." So we got the fuel out of both tanks. We had about probably 20 gallons of fuel in each one. We hadn't put a whole lot of fuel in it, thank the Lord. So we got all that out, and he said, "Well, I'll send my man down there, and he'll get you all set up." And I said, "Wait a minute, you're going to weld a tank that had fuel in it?" Yeah, it'll be fine. He knows what he's doing." And I said, "And he's still here?" He said, "Well, yeah, he's still here." So we pulled the boat up on this area right here, and see all this area right in here had been totally bulldozed. And I've got a picture in the book so you can see it. All this stuff was bulldozed. This Exxon, some of you may remember the tank farm. Exxon had their fuel farm right here. All this was still part of Exxon. This was the old wood yard and coal yard, but all that mess was cleaned up. Most of the trees still remain, but we had the boat. Dora Willie said, "You ain't welding on a tank with fuel in it over here on my place. You get that thing out of here. You ain't burning up my place." I said, okay. So we pulled it over here. Remember, none of this was here. It was just literally bulldozed soil. And so we pulled the boat up and went mine into this area, just about where the ramps are today. And we had, Alan and I got every fire extinguisher known to man. and brought them down there. I think we had gotten about, I think at least 8 or 9. I've lost count. We took them off my dad's boat. We took them out of my mom's kitchen. Everything we could find and had them, because I said, that's all I need. Him come down there, blow up a boat. The Daily Advance office at that time was in line of sight, and it was right across the street from the museum here. Museum wasn't here. But I can just see it now. Boom. Boat blows up, blows owner sky high. Daily Advance out there, click, 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 because some moron is trying to weld a fuel tank. Guy came up, yeah, no problem, I can take care of this. And I said, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Oh, you can stand right there. I said, Captain, I ain't standing there. And I got behind his truck. And I said, go right ahead, help yourself. He said, no, I said it won't blow up. It'll burn, but it won't blow up. He said, I want you to undo all the caps, all the vents, everything. It'll burn, but it won't blow up. All right. So I still got behind his truck. Go for it. So he cut on it, lit his torch, started cutting. I heard this little, I said, huh. I walked over, there it was, smoke coming out of the field light, looked like smoke. He said, what happened? He said, yeah, what's happening? He says, all the fuel is in there burning. You can see it burning in there. Okay, all right, good job. So he welded one, then he turned around and did the same thing. No, the smoke came out, and I would get closer. I said, well, that ain't gonna kill me. So I eased up to him and watched him. I said, that fool's really doing it. Welded it all up, less than an hour, done. And Alan said, the whole time, Alan is at Atlantic Christian College. And I said, he said, don't you blow my damn boat up. And Dora Willis said this, I wasn't very popular with that project, but we got the equalizer line in, and it's really all the rest of the story. And finally, after about a year, about 2 years, that's a picture of him heading to Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. That was the job at hand. We had taken an old bus engine, took it apart. The kid took it apart, had never disassembled a lawnmower in my life, put it back together again with under the tutelage of Clyde Godfrey, and it ran. And of course, the rest of the story is in the book. It led him to becoming a very accomplished captain. He managed to get his master's license, master tonnage license, and founded Pirates Cove Marina. Bought and ran for a while the Crystal Dome head boat. Got to give him some plugs. Country Girl charter boat also out of Pirates Cove. But that's kind of the story. It was just a life story. I was at it. It's 444 pages of true stories and adventures, and I think it'll help. It helps tie in Nag's Head or the Outer Banks, as well as Elizabeth City. The foreword is written by George Jackson, and I had no idea of really the impact that the potential impact that book would have until I read his foreword. And I said, I never thought of it that way. He said, you've got a unique thing here. And it's a really, really interesting story. So let's see if I left all this. My wife says I just did. All right. Any questions or comments before we adjourn? Quit laughing. This guy sitting down here laughing is the reason that I made chief in the Coast Guard. Yes. Yes, it was. The boat was built the same year we were, 1946. And it was in god awful shape when we got it. Yes, Alan Heyman.
All I have to say is thank you. I think this is the most laughter I have heard in a history for lunch in a long time.
Well, if you ain't laughing, you ain't living.
What a way to begin the first day of May. Thank you
Yes, ma'am.
again. The book is available in the museum shop, and Mr. Stuart will be available to sign books if you would like to bring up to sign your book. Thank you.